Well, the wheels of another Padres managerial search are turning, and we patiently await any sort of development for the time being. We will discuss what could be happening, what could be on the horizon. It is a new episode of the On Fire podcast. He is Derek Togerson. I am Darnay Tripp. How do we find you on this Thursday afternoon, Derek?
Cranking, man. We got World Series ready to go. We got Padres talking to everybody they can think of talking to. We got Major League Soccer playoffs about to go with San Diego FC. We got all kinds of good stuff going on, Darnay.
That's right. That's right. It is a good time. Wish we were still talking about Padres baseball, but alas. Other Padres related topics to discuss instead of the games themselves, and it is a franchise that always manages to keep things interesting. So the content churns on. So we'll get into our Pujols reportedly interviewing yesterday. As well as some other items. Pleased to be with you as always, and pleased to have the support of OGs, the sponsor of the On Fire podcast. Appreciate all they do for On Fire and the NBC7 sports team. If you need a place, I should check to see if OGs has the SDFC game on. Hopefully they do.
They better.
There's a Chargers football game tonight, maybe a little Thursday night football, college football Saturdays, NFL on Sundays, NBA just got going, NHL's going, college basketball not far behind. So if you need a place to catch a game, have a good meal, great beer list, OG's is the spot, and appreciate all they do for us. Without further ado, the walk-up music. It is the On Fire podcast brought to you by NBC7. He is Derek Togerson. I am Darnay Tripp with you on a Thursday afternoon in a week where the Padres managerial search really started to crank up. Finally, some reports of names, of scheduled interviews, and these things with, of course, Albert Pujols on Wednesday being the main item that has everybody very curious about that potential partnership and what the future could hold there. Got some people in the chat. Our buddy Lauren already chiming in, and appreciate if you are watching along with us. Always share your thoughts. Let us know what you think and how you're feeling, and we will get to you on the pod. Wheel keeps spinning. I love what AJ Preller has done, but 5 managers over his tenure is ridiculous. I worry, though, handing a playoff roster to a novice manager is a recipe for disaster. It is one of the, justified concerns as we enter another cycle here, Derek.
Yeah, there's so much unknown. And of course, every fan base, when they're talking about a situation like this, it would almost be easier to go through this if the Padres weren't good, right? We've gone through this like, all right, is it Jace Tingler? Is it Andy Green? Who cares really? Because there hasn't been a track record of success. Following up Bob Melvin, it's like, okay, they had some success. What do you do? Following up Mike Schilt, okay, there's been some success. Now we do because the roster is now good. So now it's almost more difficult to go through something like this because it's not like get us to the successful stage. It's please don't take us out of this successful stage we've enjoyed so much. It's more stressful for fans losing something that you've had than it is possibly getting something that you haven't had in a very long time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's one of those, and I don't know if your internet is bugging out a little bit. I can't tell if it's on my end, but
I'm plugged into an Ethernet cable, so if I can't do better than that.
same. So I don't know quite what the issue is. Yeah, that's it's like in some instances it is less stressful to be a fan of a team that's just of the Rockies. Like I'm not envious of fans of the Rockies, but like you don't have some of this like the dread of like, are we gonna blow it? Are we in a window right now? We're seeing the window close. Are we gonna have another manager that's just gonna waste a couple years? The situation the Angels are in, where they hire Kurt Suzuki on a 1-year deal, basically to partner him up with a GM in the final year of his deal, where nobody knows what in the world the Angels are doing or what they're trying to achieve and accomplish. They're obviously out of the Albert Pujols sweepstakes the day before the Kurt Suzuki news came. You're right. It is hard to be in this situation when they've churned through managers and you're like, okay, is this just going to be like another 2-year situation where they continue to struggle to find the guy? And you maybe have a great first year. I mean, if there's something to get excited about, year one under new managers have gone pretty well. It's year two and beyond where things are a struggle. And I think, all of us would love to find some stability in a guy that can like bring the best out of this out of these players in this franchise and not find ourselves in this situation again and again and again.
Why even sign a 1-year deal? I don't get that. Unless you really just want the experience of it, great. I mean, Suzuki's he's a big league catcher. He was an All-American catcher at Cal State Fullerton. He was in a really high draft pick, never fully worked out in the major league level. But these guys knows the game. I don't get why anybody would sign that 1-year deal. Like it didn't. He was already in the organization, obviously. So maybe it's just kind of like, hey, we're going to pull you down to do this, but you still have a contract with us doing something else. I don't know. That one was very, very strange. It probably speaks to the massive dysfunction of the Angels. Or maybe Ron Washington just needs one more year to get healthy, and then they're going to bring Wash back after that. I mean, they let him go really because he was having health issues. And, God bless him. I hope he gets everything figured out. So maybe it's hey, I need one more year, then I can come back kind of thing. And Suzuki's just kind of filling that gap, knowing that Wash is coming back. That I could see. And actually, that would be really cool because that dude's a heck of a skipper.
Yeah, but then what happens, if Kurt Suzuki somehow leads the Angels to 86 wins or something like that?
Darn it.
I'm just saying 86 might be shooting kind of high, but if you see enough from Kurt
They
Suzuki,
didn't win 86 games with Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. If they're not winning 86 games.
I understand. I'm not saying they will. I'm just saying if you see enough in Kurt Suzuki where you're like, oh, we might have something here, then you kind of end up in a hairy situation there. But you're right. Like, why, unless you feel like this is your only opportunity to become a major league manager and like, well, this is the one that's coming for me, so I might as well take advantage of it. Maybe it's like a bet on yourself type situation. Like I'm gonna earn more years in this job or another opportunity if you just give me a foot in the door. But you can understand why Albert Pujols, if they presented him with this, if this is the pitch that they gave to Albert Pujols, I understand why he would want nothing to do with it. And I think there's probably the natural concerns with any manager with this job where it's like, okay, what's the level of commitment here to kind of really turning things around? I mean, similar to, I think, conversations you'd probably have about the Rockies.
Yeah, exactly. So that's if that really is the case of why Albert was like, no, I can't do anything in 1 year. You're setting me up for failure. Let me go somewhere else. That makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah. It's interesting. Let's see. From Chip Rocks, in an ideal world, we get Albert Pujols as manager with Yadier Molina as bench coach and keep Ruben Niebla as pitching coach, but it's going to be an either-or situation.
See, that I don't necessarily agree with because Ruben's under contract. Ruben will stick around, and they're going to talk. They talked to Brian Esposito on Monday, their bench coach. Good decision. Well liked in that clubhouse. He's been a skipper in the minor league level at both the single A level in the Padres organization and the triple A level in the Pirates organization. He's done this kind of thing before. He's a good game planner. I like the fact that they gave him a shot. They're going to give Ruben a shot as well. Niebla, I think, is, again, we've talked about it on this podcast, is he's a dude who is one of the top 3 pitching coaches in the sport. And we don't know if he wants to be a manager or if they're just kind of kicking the tires on this or seeing if this is a non-starter. If he doesn't get at least an interview, then he feels disrespected and is going to try and go somewhere else. But he is under contract for next year. So he is going to be the pitching coach or the manager, barring some sort of massive disaster. And honestly, anybody who comes in as the manager and says, I want to hire my own pitching coach and not keep Ruben Niebla, I don't want that guy as the manager anyway, because he does not know baseball.
You're right. And I would imagine it would be more of a Niebla decision in that instance. And if you were to guess, if some team showed interest in Ruben Niebla, I mean, he and the Padres and that team would probably come to some sort of agreement if he wanted to interview for the job and potentially get it.
Yeah,
So
let him talk to other teams as a manager. That's fine. You can't hold
yeah,
somebody back from upward, mobility, from bettering their career. You can't do that. If someone wants to talk to him as a pitching coach, they can go to hell. And that's exactly what AJ. Oh, really? Hi, yeah, go to hell. Bye.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, Niebla under contract for 2 more years. Victor Rodriguez under contract for another year, and Kevin Acee reporting, and which we'd all expect that their expectation is that they're going to interview Ruben Niebla, and that's one of the questions is like his level of interest, and having this would be his third manager that he's worked with, having gone through these cycles a couple times. Has he had enough of this? Does he feel like he's ready to kind of take the next step, or is he? I think we would all love a world where Ruben Niebla is like, great, yeah, Albert Pujols, whoever, keep me on board. I just love being part of this organization and being back home and contributing in my own way. I think that would make a lot of people happy. It would make this a lot simpler of a decision, rather than if they were having to choose between, say, an Albert Pujols and a Ruben Niebla, and then things get a little bit trickier there because, might you sacrifice? And again, like you said, is he looking to be a manager? If that's the situation, you got to give him that opportunity. And we haven't heard anything from that standpoint in terms of anybody else kind of knocking on his door or the Padres granting anybody permission to talk to him. So probably getting a bit ahead of myself from that regard, but just one of, in the machinations of them kind of going through this process and trying to make this decision. It's one of the interesting sidebars therein.
Yeah, I think it makes this job, I mean, as attractive as the San Diego job is, and not just because of the roster that has the ability to win now, the fan base that is, arguably the best in baseball at the moment, the ballpark that is arguably the best in baseball at the moment, the city that is undoubtedly the best in baseball at the moment. All of these things. I mean, having a tailor-made pitching coach, there are a lot of good pitching coaches. There are very few great pitching coaches. To have that position set and ready to go is like, it's just another feather in the cap of anybody who gets this job. I mean, this is got of all the openings, this is far and away got to be the most desirable situation or at least spot to land in, which kind of makes me wonder, why are more people not like publicly banging the drum to come out here and get interviews? Like, is that just something you just don't do? Is it, uncouth to do something like that? Because you got to figure this is the place to be, man. This is awesome. Or they've heard horror stories about how the front office operates, and they're like, maybe that negates all the other good stuff we have going on.
I mean, I think you hit on it there. I mean, there's probably reason to have some concern, if you're in that position and these guys as well connected as they are. I would imagine having all these conversations, and yeah, it's hard to know. There's the ownership piece of it. There's the AJ Preller piece of it. That just not knowing what the landscape will be beyond 2026 might give a guy a little bit of pause. There was one guy that has publicly thrown his name out there. This Carlos Hernandez situation, former Padres catcher, longtime Padres Spanish broadcaster, did an interview with Dennis Lin where he's like, I would love to have the opportunity. I feel like I could be a manager. He's been a catching coordinator in a couple of different instances in the past. Obviously, has the ability to contact AJ Preller and folks in the organization. And Dennis Lin's piece said that had not happened, but he was going to Dennis Lin to publicly express his interest in the job, which leads me to think there's probably nothing there. If you're making this pitch through the media and you're within the organization and you haven't had a call, then I'm guessing there's probably not much here.
Okay, well, we're also the media. I would like to go ahead and also I'd say I would like to be the Padres manager. I think I have what it takes to be the skipper. I've watched a lot of games. I've managed a lot of games in my mind palace. I think that really I can be a guy who can really make a difference. So I'm publicly stating my desire to be the Padres next manager. So I'm doing the exact same thing that Carlos Hernandez is doing, and I honestly have the same chance of getting the job that Carlos Hernandez has.
What kind of manager would Derek Togerson be? Are you like a big gut, like go on your gut vibes type guy? Are you like analytics deep in the numbers? What's the Derek Togerson philosophy?
I like to marry the two. I think I'm more of a motivator, more like the culture setter. The more the Sean McVay than the Kyle Shanahan, where I'm not going to be necessarily like calling all the plays all the time. Or I'm like a Mike Tomlin. I'll be more like a walk around guy where I'll kind of be motivating everybody and then making a few decisions here and there. I'm definitely the positive motivator. That's kind of the kind of skipper that I would be.
I feel like Tomlin's also maybe like a little bit scary. Are you as scary as Mike Tomlin?
I have the capacity to be scary. Yes. Mostly I'm just kind of goofy and happy and stuff. But no, I can get scary when necessary. Yes.
Okay. All right. And
ask Mike McCoy about that.
And you'd work well with the front office, no issues there.
Yeah, that'd be fine. That'd be great. This is one of these guys. I don't understand why they don't do that. Somebody hands you a lineup and they want you to do this. You go, okay, cool. And then throw it away and do what you want. Who's going to stop you? Just, go by what you want to do. And then eventually if they come down like, hey, you're not doing it right. I'm like, well, we're at 18-9. I'm doing something right. So you can either shut up and go back to your office and let me do what I'm doing, or we can continue to play this game, a little song and dance pony show, or you hand me a lineup and I wipe my butt with it and throw it away and then do what I want to do and we win. That's just how it would work.
It is funny. I was going through some of the old Mike Schilt clips when he was hired, just out of curiosity. And there was a line that I had forgotten that he said that I know we discussed when he said it, because we were talking about all these things, how you work with the front office, how you work with AJ. And you remember when he said, I'm at the pleasure of the Padres. And it was like, he was going to say, I'm at the mercy of the Padres. And then he probably realized in his mind, like, that doesn't sound the best. Mm-hmm. So he said, I'm at the pleasure of the Padres. And like, hey, I'll express my decision, but whatever we decide to do and whatever they want to do, I'll do it. Granted, it is your introductory press conference. You're not going to ruffle any feathers at that point, but it didn't sound like he approached the job as though he was at the pleasure of the Padres as the season went on. Interesting how things change, but I guess maybe not all that surprising.
Yeah. I will say this though, if I was a skipper of the press conferences, it'd be fantastic.
Never a dull moment for sure. And they might get a little Mike Leachy in the sense of, why are they discussing this at a post-game baseball press conference? I don't understand how they got to this topic.
Extremely Mike Leachy. Yeah, there'd be Pirates would be discussed, and multiple other things that have really nothing to do with baseball. But we got to run the gamut, go around Robinson Barn a couple times. It'd be nice.
Let's see. We've got an active chat today. Yeah, we do need to get Greg Garcia back on. I texted him when the Mike Schilt stuff happened, and he was shocked, but I haven't had a chance to really get into it with him. Back to Chip Rocks. As long as Derek doesn't manage like Vic Morrow, I'm game for him to get the gig.
Perfect. Chip, I'm with you, man. I got you. I
think HW6271 probably answering or in regard to your question of why wouldn't somebody want this job, an expensive roster with aging players, most of whom are unlikely to perform to the level of their contracts, could potentially be a drawback.
Or do you want what the Angels have, which is a whole bunch of stuff where you don't really know what's going on? I mean, the Orioles have maybe a better position player roster. They have no pitching. That's going to be difficult. It's still based on what's available. It's the best by far, because at least you have Manny Machado with a track record. Fernando Tatis Jr. is entering his year age 27 season. A young Jackson Merrill, who's going to be nothing but better. I mean, Xander Bogaerts has shown the ability, at least at times, to at least look like a fairly close version of himself. Like you got dudes here who can play, and are they a little bit older? Yeah, they're a veteran guy who still have several years left. That or do you want to go take over with the Marlins?
Joshua is saying it's because we have, in all caps, expectations that may be too much for certain managers, maybe certain managers, including Mike Schilt.
Maybe. And again, I'll tell you what, if expectations scare you, don't come here. If expectations scare you, why do you want to be a major league manager? because every single fan base, at least at some point of the season, on the day that pitchers and catchers reports, even Rockies fans, allow them to entertain that idea that maybe this is the year we shock the world. Everyone has expectations. If expectations scare you, you're not cut out to be a Major League Baseball manager. So don't even apply at that point.
Isn't it great that we're having that conversation? Because I feel like the whole like laid back San Diego reputation, which was, probably fair up until like 2018, like is blown out the water. Like nobody's talking about that anymore as like just a laid back place to work, enjoy yourself, enjoy the weather and all that. This outside perception, that's all gone. And if anybody talks to anybody who is around this team, around the franchise, it is clear that this is one with like real aspirations. And, thank you to Peter Seidler and company for making it so, and for the fan base, like demanding it as well and wanting to make sure that like desperately hoping and praying that again, we maximize this window that we're in and see this team reach its potential. The fact that that is the standard and the expectation. And, when John Seidler writes it at the end of his year letter to the fans, it's a failure or whatever, however you put it, because they fell short of the World Series. A lot of owners say this, but there seems to, remain that commitment. And there is certainly now from the fan base, like this fervor to reach that. And for that reason, just like you see in lots of other markets and lots of other around other teams and franchises, like there's some heat on this job when you're in that seat, and that's how it should be.
Of course it is. Of course it should be. You're the front-facing face of a Major League Baseball organization. You're dealing with the media 400 times a year. You are the guy who's leading, 40 different guys throughout the course of 162 games plus an entire 6-7 week spring training. Like, yeah, you need to have a certain kind of personality and the ability to say, I'm going to take some shots and some slings and arrows, and it's not going to bother me at all. You need to have that kind of ball player mentality of like, yeah, guess what? We're going to lose some days, but we're never going to beat ourselves. It's you got to take a whole bunch of crap to do this kind of job. And if you're not good with that, then again, go sell insurance.
And I would think somebody, going back to Albert Pujols, I'm sure through the course of his career, he's had some hard conversations, hard interactions with the media. Playing in a place where the Cardinals had real expectations, being in the LA market for both those teams, and just carrying the weight of being like a generational talent. He's accustomed to that sort of thing. And I think maybe even more useful is the ability to like be alongside Manny and be alongside Tatis as they're navigating these things together. I think that could be a really useful asset to have in the clubhouse that they really haven't had, to this point.
Oh yeah, no question. That's the one thing that Albert Pujols brings that really no other potential candidate brings is a understanding of the clubhouse and how ball players are impacted by 162 game seasons. Pujols understands that better than any of them. He's got 22 years at the major league level. He understands expectation. He understands winning 2 World Series. He understands what it's like to carry the weight of a city, a state, a country on his back. He gets that. He understands what all of this is about. Literally, the only thing we have to figure out with him is, can he handle the X's and O's? That's it. There is zero other concern about Albert Pujols. It is just, how do you handle your bullpen? How do you know which guy is up and which guys? Who do you have? Who do you not have? Can you steer a team through a 162 game season and give it the best chance possible to win in situations and stay healthy? That's what we don't know. Everything else, he checks every box and then some.
One of the questions I want to ask you is like, there's a lot of characteristics you obviously look for in a manager. Is there one that kind of is at the top of the list for you as they go through this search? Because I think with Pujols, there is the respect piece, and people talk a lot about Manny and Tatis and managing Manny and Tatis and getting the best out of those guys. as being, obviously a feather in the cap of Albert Pujols, and why you might want to consider him for the job, despite that lack of experience and just not knowing how he would be able to manage 162 games and all the situations that come therein. I can kind of get that, and I think like if we've learned sort of anything through the years and through this kind of modern era of San Diego Padres baseball, thinking like since Manny and Tatis came around, it's sort of like as the stars go, this franchise goes. And so if you have a manager that might give you the best opportunity to, or the greatest potential to get the most out of those guys, keep them inspired, keep them engaged, help them develop as leaders, both in like what they say and how they carry themselves, like that might be one of the most important qualities in a guy. And I might be willing to overlook some of the questions in terms of like the X's and O's, the chess game, so to speak, because I think Pujols might be able to tap into something that other managers could not, just because they're not Albert freaking Pujols.
See, there's where you don't know where the line is, because it doesn't matter how much respect you have for someone. It doesn't matter how much you love them, how much you think that they are, the greatest ball player you've ever been around. If 3, 4, 5 times in the first month they make a decision that costs that team a game, that goes away real fast. And you start to think, hey, this guy was a great player. Yeah. He's over his skis as a skipper. Winning is the one thing, and making these good decisions, that keeps the respect factor intact, right? Now that's a huge hurdle to clear. And bringing in someone from the outside, Jace Tingler never had that. Andy Green never had that. They didn't have the respect piece, and they never earned the respect piece, right? Bob Melvin came in already with the respect piece in place. And then they had a really good first year, and then the wheels came flying off, as we all saw. But the respect piece was there because he had that resume already. In 2023, didn't happen because he was making decisions based on whether or not Josh Hader felt like he could pitch that day and whether or not Juan Soto had to get on the bus on time. And everybody started to lose all that respect. It went away very quickly. So the decisions that team makes is one of that skipper makes. That's going to determine how much that respect lasts and how strong it becomes.
There's that nagging fear that I have where we're 2 or 3 years down the road, we're doing this all over again, and Pujols didn't work out, and we got caught up in the name, the flash, the cachet, what he accomplished as a player, and let that maybe blind us or influence the decision too heavily. Because then it's situations like that where it's easy to look really dumb when you hire a first-time manager just based on the name recognition as a player, especially if it's a situation where, like, say Brian Esposito goes somewhere and has success, say Ruben Niebla goes somewhere and has success, and you're like, oh man. And we just had an NLCS where there's 2 managers that were in the building that have gone on to have success as major league managers. That's kind of the nightmare situation where you get into June and you're like, Pujols, this ain't it. And you're thinking, well, why did we make this decision in the first place? Why aren't we smart enough to put all that stuff aside, the glitz, the flash of the name, the excitement that might create for just kind of a more logical, thought out decision. As somebody I'm very interested in the Albert Pujols thing. And I think could be cool if that works out. I just don't know the answers to those questions, and I do know that is a possible outcome that would have all of us, disappointed and frustrated for sure.
Another thing this might be, if you're talking to a guy like Pujols, is because as we do know, the respect factor is there, right? He's going to lead that clubhouse. Do they need that guy because they know that the guys they have in the clubhouse aren't leaders? And is this in some way an indictment of Manny Machado? Especially given what we saw at the end of that season with the now infamous meeting in the clubhouse after Game 3 of the wild card series that I was there for. Is that now the Padres acknowledging this guy is a ball player? He's not the guy we need leading here. We need another guy to be able to do that. And if we can't bring in a player of that ilk, Let's find a manager of that ilk. And Albert Pujols is that guy.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's certainly something to that. And it was funny. When Mike Schultz stepped away, I don't know if I've mentioned this. I tweeted something along the lines of, you know, Tatis and Machado are going to go into year 8, still yet to have a manager for more than 2 years. And I meant that as like, isn't it a shame for those guys to not have stability, especially Tatis? Like Tatis starting in his career in 2019, Manny had Buck. He'd been around a manager for a long time. Like, isn't it a shame that those guys, and now Jackson Merrill, haven't had a guy that's their guy for a long period of time? And what I wasn't, and maybe I should have thought this, but what I wasn't expecting is all the comments that are people saying, well, why do you think that is, Darnay? Like, maybe it's a chicken and the egg type of situation. Like, do you ever think that those guys might be the reason why that they continue to churn through managers, and why this might be a difficult job that is taxing on managers and can create just sort of a tough environment? And I think that all kind of plays into what you're saying. And maybe that's a reason to consider Albert Pujols. But like you said, if things go south, and especially Manny being as smart a player as he is, like, you can say whatever you want about the way he carries himself in some situations, deals with the media, what have you, like his baseball IQ is exceptional, as I would imagine Albert Pujols is as well. But, if they're in a situation where Manny's like, why is he doing this? And if these situations are popping up again and again and again, like you said, that respect factor could deteriorate pretty quickly.
Yeah, Manny is almost a victim of his own intelligence when it comes to baseball, because you're right. He has, what was it, John Morosi told us on the show, he has a baseball PhD. He's you even look at little things like one of the games in the wild card series. It might have been game 1, where there was the out at third base, and it was ended the inning, and Manny immediately turned to home plate and said he didn't score. Like the first thing on his mind was, we got him before he hit the plate, which was something that the umpires then had to confer about to see if it was accurate or not, because I think it might have even slipped their minds, just making on the assumption that the runner would stay at second or the runner was going to score, and it was kind of a foregone conclusion. Manny was immediately right on top of it. Like he almost has this like forced feel for what's going on around him on a baseball field. It's almost spooky and creepy. Like he was right on top of that kind of stuff. But I think with that comes an incredible lack of patience for anyone who's not on his level. And that's what gets him into trouble.
Yeah. That's a great point. From Kristen, keep Esposito in his role to help Albert Pujols on the bench. If we get him, keep Ruben at pitching coach. Keep that department strong. Here for it, certainly. But you got to have buy-in from anybody. And I think this is something we talked about last week, is like the coaching staff that Albert would potentially, if it goes that way, surround himself with, is probably as important as anything.
Yeah, and Kirsten, that's a really good call. Espo has done a really good job in that bench role, and he's very well liked in that clubhouse. Niebla, we've talked about, absolutely need to hang on to him. But you're right, it's going to have to be kind of it takes a village kind of approach, where you're going to have somebody who, as good as Albert is, he's going to need people to rely on. He's going to need an analytics department to tell him kind of how to interpret this, that, and whatnot, what these different situations and matchups and things, what they mean. How do you go about this kind of stuff? So he's going to need some people around him to kind of help him, navigate these waters. And that's an absolutely astute point. And I think probably where a lot of major league teams probably fall apart is they have a manager that they don't fill out the bench with nearly enough capable coaches.
Yeah. From Gustavo, on Friar, it'll hit us like a ton of bricks when Service is announced as manager, in parentheses, not good.
It could happen. I know. And my contention is, if you leave somewhere and they immediately get better, that's not good. He left Seattle and they immediately came 1 win from going to the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
That's not good. It's
not great.
I would have serious concerns about him. Same with like a Flaherty, like he was in charge of the offense 2 years ago. Are you really going to bring him back now to work with basically the same group of players and think you're going to coax anything else out of this group? It doesn't make any sense to me.
That just again, especially like Niebla being there, sitting there for 4 years, doing the job that he has. You could kind of understand it with Mike Schilt, but that would seem a bit like a slap in the face to Ruben Niebla, and maybe even Esposito if And Service has been around for like 1 year. I don't know.
I mean, he's the guy. He's a guy who has a lot of major league experience. I mean,
Yeah.
he was hired the same year that Andy Green was.
Hmm.
Think about that. And he was the skipper up until last year. That's how long he lasted in Seattle. And he did good things there. He took him to the playoffs several times. Like he had arguably one of the most successful stretches in Seattle Mariners history as a manager. But when it's not, you're not quite. This is the problem. He had a really talented group of players. He couldn't get over the hump. What franchise does that sound like?
Thank you. You took the words right out of my mouth. He feels like he's been a good but not great manager, and that fits the mold of the Padres and the frustration of fans around the Padres almost to a T. And for that reason, I'd probably be like, eh.
And now again, maybe Bill Belichick stunk with the Browns. He was really good with the Patriots. Maybe it's one of those where it's the second job is the one that really clicks for a lot of these guys. Maybe, maybe you just didn't quite. I even heard somebody was trying to interview Andy Green this cycle for one of their manager jobs. He's in the Mets front office right now, and he was like, "No, I'm kind of digging it in the front office." But somebody was even talking about, hey, there's a guy, he's got some experience. Go talk to a guy who's got experience. So maybe the second time around would be better for him. Although I do think it also kind of comes with, you need a little bit of a break in between those things to truly sit back and assess with what you did wrong and what you need to do differently moving forward.
Yeah. Chip rocks. If Pujols as manager and Machado and Tatis still underperform, then it's time to trade them. I think one of those two you might be able to trade.
Oh, you could trade Tatis in a heartbeat. You could trade Tatis. You can get a lot. You can get a lot for Fernando Tatis Jr. In fact, that might be the move for the Padres this offseason. And we could talk about that at probably another time. That's to do the restocks the system. Because the talent, I mean, the contract for a lot of those bigger market clubs is not bad. It's not prohibitive. Manny's contract, I think you'd have a boatload of time moving. Given his age, given how long it goes, given he's going to probably be a DH in a few years here, given the prickliness of the personality, he'd have to go somewhere that is truly just like the Dodgers, like just throw him into the mixer of all these superstars because it doesn't really matter anymore. So I think he'd be very difficult to move. Tatis, you can move like that, and you would get an awful lot for him.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and like you said, it's probably its own episode if we chose to dive into those waters at some point. Mm-hmm. I was looking just in terms of like the timing because I feel like we always get impatient around this time of year. Like, all right, how long is this going to take? For reference, now Mike Schilt was its own situation because, as everyone will remember, was it 8 days before they introduced him, Peter Seidler passed away. So that was early mid-November. So that set everything back. He wasn't hired until November 21st of 2023. You probably throw that out. They hired Bob Melvin on October 28th. We are sitting here on October 23rd. They hired Jace Tingler on October 24th of 2019.
Which would be tomorrow.
So if you're going based on those, we're in kind of like a 5-day window, really before November. Typically, these things happen before November in normal circumstances. And even the Schilt thing wasn't a normal circumstance because we weren't sure if Melvin was coming back. Then it looked like everybody was coming back. And then he was granted permission to talk to the Giants. And so that kind of got dragged out a little bit longer. Than these situations when Andy Green was fired, when Mike Schilt steps aside, and it's a little bit more cut and dry. Jace Tingler as well.
Yeah, so. They got a late start certainly on trying to find Schilt, the replacement for Melvin last time, just because of how everything broke down there and the timing, and then the horrible passing of Peter. So it was a very strange hiring cycle that they were in at that point, and as we saw, maybe maybe you don't really have to have your guy in all that quickly. I mean, Schulte got in there in a little bit, but was a few days before Thanksgiving, and it still worked out. Now, granted, he was already in the organization and with the team for 2 years. We understood a lot of what he already had to work with. If you're hiring internally, I guess that could work. Also, where the hell is my Bruce Bochy interview?
I was wondering when we were going to get to that.
Still waiting, AJ. Figure it out. This is not rocket science, okay? I know, because my friend is an actual rocket scientist. And I asked him, is this rocket science? And he said no. So I don't know what they're waiting for. Talk to Bruce friggin' Bochy.
Do you think it's AJ Preller holding up the process or Bruce Bochy holding up the process?
Oh,
or
it's AJ.
Inhibiting the process?
I would, again, I don't know this for sure. I would bet dollars to donuts. I would go Chauncey Billups right now that it is AJ.
That Bochy wants it. That Bochy would take it in a heartbeat.
He would at least have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
Yes, he would.
That's where the concern about how things operate jumps in for me.
Yes.
Especially at this stage in Bruce Bochy's life and career. Like, how many potential headaches does he really want to deal with?
Right. But also, it's just, how do if you understand people at all, you put it out there in the universe. You just say, hey, we reached out to Boch. We made a call. We made a call. You put it out there just to show the fan base that you're actually thinking along those lines. If it doesn't work out, at least you tried. Then you've got if we didn't line up, he wanted too much money. He didn't like the farm. So there's some excuse you can then point to, which is better than just being so stubborn and ignorant you don't even talk to the man. That's scary. Not being able to line up on it is fine. Not talking to him is indescribably stupid.
That's one of those questions that gets asked deep into the press conference or when AJ's on the side with the beat writers. By the way, Bochy was available. Did you talk to Bochy? And that might provide the answer to that question. I'm actually surprised that Machado hasn't been pushing for Buck Showalter for the manager spot. Would he be the guy that finally gets Machado to start playing like a superstar? Didn't we talk about that a couple times in the past in one of these last instances?
Yeah, Manny he was MVP finalist in 2022, his first year with Melvin. He was much better in 2024 than he was in 25, his first year with Schilt. I mean, maybe. I mean, Buck's a dude who's won a lot of places, and he's kind of evolved as a manager over his career as well. He used to be, when he was with the Diamondbacks, he was so detail oriented. It was like they had this massive book of rules and things he had to go with. Like the famous line, I was in Arizona when it happened. When Bob Brenly took over, Brenly kind of made fun of it, saying, all right, so I know you guys had a whole bunch of rules. He pulled out a cocktail napkin, said, this is about as many things I can write my rules on. My only rule is that we win. And that veteran group went out and won a World Series. It was perfect for what they needed, right? Since then, Buck has really dialed back all of that, down to the minutia of everything has to be, and really let players more be themselves. So I think he was really good with them. The Mets won 101 games in 2022 before the Padres beat them in the wild card. And then again, the Mets being a horribly dysfunctional organization, it all kind of fell apart. I think Buck's probably got some good baseball left in him, and that's actually, Jim, is really not a bad call.
Yeah. From Viva Padres, I've decided I want a 2 to 3 year extension with AJ and letting him hire Flaherty, but no clue if AJ or ownership even wants him to stay.
That's the question. Is AJ going to even be around here? Now, I would have to think if he's involved in the managerial pursuit, he's going to get an extension, because it makes absolutely no sense to have a general manager hire a manager and then leave so that manager can work with a different general manager. As we've seen how many times, Darnay, not just in baseball, but in all sports, the GM and the head coach / manager, they have to have a good relationship. If they don't, it's not going to work. They have to be able to get along. So there's no reason to let AJ pick somebody if he's not going to be here through at least the first year of that guy's tenure. That makes no sense whatsoever. So I have to believe AJ is either going to finish out this year or get an extension. that's because it's stupid to do it otherwise.
Or they pull a Halo situation and just sign a guy to a 1 year at a time with AJ Preller.
It's oh god. If that guy's Bruce Bochy, he says, "Give me 1 year, and I'll win a World Series and ride off to Cooperstown." I'm in.
Yeah, yeah, the Preller situation, and also like I think about like I feel like they'd have to have Preller sorted out before they introduce the manager, because then half the press conference is going to be questions about AJ Preller's future. And I just, for the optics and the messaging and all that, I don't think you want to be in a situation where you're introducing this manager and both the manager and AJ and potentially ownership. If I would love it if John Seidler spoke at that press conference. That would be great. Are asked questions about well, what's more likely, that or 86 wins for the Angels next year.
86 wins for the Angels next year.
I would hate to be in a situation where all these Preller questions are being asked, and I think that would be an uncomfortable start for whoever's in that managerial seat when it's their day and they're almost second fiddle to all these AJ Preller questions. Like, I feel like you have to have that sorted out before you go, have this person available in public to then be badgered by us media folks.
Yeah, so it's shoot. The Chargers hired Jim Harbaugh and then went out and found Jim Horitz. So sometimes it works that way, but again, it was the NFL pushing basically Roger sat him down, Dino down, and said, "Listen, you're screwing this up. You're hiring Harbaugh. End of discussion. Then figure it out." So the league stepped in there. This is a very different situation, but yeah, you're right. It's you want to have your leadership structure in place and all pulling in the same direction before you start going out and being forward facing with the media. So hopefully that's something that the Padres ownership group understands, that you want to have everybody don't give us media idiots and the fan base chances to poke holes in your story, because that's what we do. That's why we're here. And that's what we're going to do, right? If there's a concern, we're going to try and bring it up. So just have everything locked up and all your potential loopholes tied up. Do it all before you let us at whatever's going on there. That makes all the sense in the world. Anyone who does it differently, I start to wonder, how are they running this thing?
The question of like, okay, what's taking so long for AJ Preller? Like, if they're going to make this extension happen, I think the obvious answer is, well, they're looking for a manager. So, I mean, that could be the holdup, and maybe they're saying, hey, like, we're all in, we're going to move forward. Let's figure that out, and then we'll get to kind of the extension piece, because there is the expiration on AJ. We're a year out from that. Now, you wouldn't want to push it for a year, but you want to get the managerial part of it like cemented, that there is a clock running there. It's the timeliness of that is far more immediate. So, maybe if I'm being naive, it's like, hey, let's figure that part out, and then we'll get to you, AJ, and that'll follow shortly thereafter. But if that's not the case, the longer it goes, the more, again, like you said, us media types poking holes in things and finding things to talk about and putting two and two together, the more we're able to do that with this AJ Preller situation. What's taking so long? If this shouldn't be that complicated, and the fact that it's still dragging on leads us to think that, where there's smoke, there might be fire.
Yeah, and that is a good point. His contract's not expiring as soon as the Dodgers win the World Series. Like we got a year of this, so he can always work on an extension, announce it at spring training. Like there's plenty of time to talk about that kind of thing. It's very different for a GM to go in the last year of his deal than it is for a coach or a manager to go in the last year of their deal, because then you're quote unquote the lame duck manager, right? Then it's like, oh, hold on a second, because managers and coaches, they typically don't negotiate contracts in the middle of the season. GM and front office types, they can do that kind of stuff at pretty much any time.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, now he had 2 years left on his deal. He was signed through 2022 when AJ signed the extension. He signed it in February of 2021, so a little before spring training. Again, wasn't pressing because he wasn't in his last year. He had that extra year, but again, I'm sure Peter Seidler was interested in extending AJ before late January of that year.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, coming off the COVID season, things took a little while. Now that was an eventful. You'll remember that was a very eventful late December for the Padres with the Musgrove, Darvish, and Snell deals. But I'm sure there was mutual interest. They didn't get it done until February. So does that tell us anything? I don't know.
Nah, not really. It's the timing. The timing is what the timing is. It's the manager is certainly a much more important factor here.
Yeah, yeah, no question. Got anything else?
Is there a dark horse we haven't thought about? But also, by the way, I'd see looking around like, are any big league teams going to talk to any potential candidates? Like the Angels got one, the Rangers got one. It seems like there's just this like almost big hold on interviews. Typically, you got, oh, this guy came in this day, this guy came in this day, and all these things are moving all over the place. Like it's kind of been quiet, right?
No, I think you're right. And I do wonder, and I was just going to double check this just to make sure I didn't miss something, but Orioles suddenly shift direction in managerial hunt. Oh, and there's a picture of Scott Service. Very interesting. My question was, if we find out later this week, over the weekend, that Albert Pujols has an interview scheduled with the Orioles, which to my knowledge, has not happened yet, what does that tell us about the potential of him? Because it seems like he's got legitimate interest in this job. Is that him just like, hey, I want to kick the tires on every potential opportunity? Or is that him saying, you know what, I heard something, I got a weird vibe, maybe I'm not into it. Let's check in on Baltimore.
Well, I think that's just, going after your crossing your T's and dotting your I's.
Yeah.
You might really like the situation here, but then if another team that obviously, as we said, was in the playoffs 2 years ago and has a whole bunch of good young talents, at least in the position player group, a guy like Gunnar Henderson, who is kind of anchoring that thing, and Jackson Holiday and Adley Rutschman should be coming back. Like, you talk to that team. Really, what the Padres would have to do is be like, more or less what the Kansas City Chiefs did when Andy Reid walked in the building. We're not letting you leave. What's it going to take? Otherwise, Andy would talk to the Chargers if they had asked him. They never did because they're freaking idiots. So you always go talk to other people. Maybe there's a better situation somewhere, But that's so he would certainly go and do that. Plus, it's always good to interview people. It just gets your interview chops up. You kind of want to see what other organizations are like. You want to see what they're working with, how they do things. What can I learn from this? It's just smart business practice.
Yeah, as of 2 days ago, no interview scheduled between the Orioles and Pujols. But according to John Heyman, Scott Service drawing interest from both the O's and the Minnesota Twins. So there you go.
Okay. There you go.
Nick Hundley was another one with the Padres. Seems to be in the mix.
I know that's an interesting one. Because, obviously knows the organization fairly well. He was here. He was a Padres catcher. And talking to Nick, it was always like, dude, he's got his head on his shoulders, right? He understood the game fairly well. So I think he's in a front office role right now. And Nick's an interesting potential candidate as well. I was really hoping that Austin Hedges wouldn't get another 1-year deal with Cleveland so they could hire him. I think he's going to be the Sean McVay of baseball. Take over a team at like 33 and lead them right to the playoffs.
Speaking of Sean McVay, just being young and being outside the box hire at the time, what do you think of the Giants going to the college ranks with Tony Vitello? Seems like something that has potential, boom or bust potential. If this works out well, then, what happened after Sean McVay? You had, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, Nick Sirianni. All of a sudden, these young coaches short on head coaching experience became sort of in vogue. I would imagine the major league front offices would start scouring Omaha for their managers. You're starting to see, AJ Preller in Omaha in June, and these guys going to the college ranks, or it's just a completely different vibe going from college to the pros, and it is a disaster. I'm not sure what to expect here.
Yeah, it's a completely different vibe. Remember, all those guys you just mentioned, they all had NFL coaching experience.
Right.
In fact, you look back at that that Mike Shanahan coaching staff with Washington from like
Oh yeah.
10, 11 years ago. It
Mhm.
was Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Mike McDaniel, Matt LaFleur.
Yeah, LaFleur's another.
Who was the other one?
I don't know. Was there another? Those are the guys I always remember.
Yeah, it was. Oh, Kevin O'Connell. Duh. He was.
Mm.
They were all together on that one coaching staff, and then they all kind of one became a coordinator here. Remember, like Mike McDaniel was Kyle Shanahan's offensive coordinator in San Francisco. Kevin O'Connell was with Sean McVay as OC in LA. Like they all kind of had they got different coaching, NFL coaching experience. So were they unknowns a little bit? Yeah. Do they have any head coaching experience? No, but they had professional experience.
Yeah.
Tony Vitello was never coached professionally. It's always been amateur. So again, he could end up being, pull another football analogy, he could be Jimmy Johnson, or he comes in and immediately is fantastic. Or he could be Bobby Petrino, where it don't work. It's too big of a jump. We simply have no idea.
Oh boy. Yeah, you don't want to end up in the Bobby Petrino mode.
No, you don't.
That is for sure. Well, hopefully, like we said, we're getting into that period of the year where something could be happening. So hopefully by next week, I'm going to say by next Thursday. By next Thursday's pod, we'll be talking about a new manager and hopefully an emergency bonus podcast, something of the sort, between now and then. Because yeah, we're in that window.
As long as it doesn't happen on Halloween, I'm fine.
That's true.
Leave Halloween alone. All right, that's my favorite day of the year.
This is the first Halloween.
Halloween. I'm not talking about baseball on Halloween. I am scaring the hell out of my neighbors on Halloween.
This is the first year the Twins are like, and they've been enthusiastic about Halloween for like 2 months now. So
nice.
This will be a fun one for us. Frog and Toad. Are you familiar with Frog and Toad?
I am. Yes.
Yeah. That's one of their favorites. So
that's awesome.
Laura's got the costumes, the little hats. It's going to be fun. They've been nuts about Halloween. Our daily walks are just looking at Halloween decorations. It's been fun.
What are you and the missus going as?
That's a good question. We were going to figure out other side characters from Frog and Toad. So we haven't quite buttoned that up yet, but that's the thinking. So I need to get that nailed down in the next week or so.
Nice.
We have so many decorations here at the station. I think I'm going to bring them in at some point next week and let them walk around because I think they'll enjoy that.
That's really cool.
I think that's all we got. Appreciate everybody who chimed into the chat. Made a lot of fun, especially on these, relative. There's stuff to talk about, but these relatively slow off-season weeks makes it fun when you guys contribute to the conversation. So thank you for doing that as always. We'll be with you next week and hopefully have some real news to discuss. Catch you then.